and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at this. It's the Thermaltake Versa C22 RGB Snow Edition, and the recommended retail price of this is $59.49.
But first, here's a message from our sponsors.
This is what Thermaltake had to say about the product. It's perfectly designed for gamers. The new Versa C22 RGB Mid-Tower chassis features a sleek appearance and an extraordinary thermal performance. The light of the built-in RGB LED illumination is visible from all angles. Users can add a personal touch with 7 vibrant colours. The enlarged transparent window offers a direct view of the inner system. Additionally, the Versa C22 RGB comes with a power cover and supports up to a standard ATX motherboard. Most importantly, the spacious interior design not only provides plenty of space for cable management, but it also allows users to install the latest PC hardware, all-in-one coolers and DIY liquid cooling solutions.
Please remember to support our channel by liking, subscribing and even commenting on this video. The more interactions we get, the more content we can release.
Okay, as I said before, we've got the Thermaltake Versa C22 case here. It's RGB, and this apparently is the Snow Edition. So let's have a quick look at the box and see what we can see. As you can see on here, it's pretty straightforward. You've got a picture of the actual, or should I say a drawing of the actual case there. It says it's a Snow Edition with a sticker on there. It says it's the model, it's RGB, pretty straightforward. On the side down here, so as you can see on here, is the Versa C22 RGB. It's a Mid-Tower. It's 538 by 198 by 480 millimeters. It's got 7 expansion slots. Material is SPCC. The motherboard will fit 6.7 inch by 6.7, which is a mini ITX, 9.6 by 9.6, which is a micro ATX, and 12 by 9.6, which is a standard ATX. It's got drive bays, accessible. You've got 2 times 3.5 inch or 2.5 inch with HDD tray. Got hidden, you've got 2.5 inch with the motherboard tray. Cooling, rear you've got 120 by 120 times 25, and that looks like it, and that's a 16 decibel fan running at 1000 RPM. The fan support on the front, 2 times 120s or 1 times 140. The top, 2 times 120. The rear, 1 times 120. Radiator support. The front will support 1 times 120 or 1 times 140, and the top will also support 120mm rad as well. CPU cooler height installation is 160mm, and the actual length is 390mm without the front fans. Okay, so let's open this up and see exactly what we've got. First time I've seen this case, so it's going to be quite interesting to see what it's like. Okay, opening the box, there's not much to see other than the case itself and 2 pieces of polystyrene, and it looks like the case is in a plastic bag. So let's just get it out. Easiest way to get these cases out of the boxes is open one end, place it down, and then lift. You may have to pull the handles out at the side though to do that. Take this polystyrene off. So there's nothing come out of here up to now, so no instructions, so I'm guessing they're all inside the case. The case itself is quite light in feel, could easily pick it up with one hand if it wasn't so big. There you go, so it's easy to lift, so it's not heavy at all. Let's get it out of this plastic bag. One thing our manufacturers like to use a lot is these plastic bags, especially with environmental problems these days, so I wish to find a different way of packaging these especially considering each bit has got then plastic on yet again. So let's take all that off. There we go. So we'll leave the one on the glass for now. Okay, so first looks, it's a white plastic case, and the areas where the vents are or the fans are going to go, I've got sort of a black look to it, so it looks like a tinted window as such as you would get on a car. The side is plastic, it's all plastic, so there's, I'm guessing, see-through across the top, front, and then on the side. Ventilation, we'll have a look, see if this is adequate or not. We've seen a few cases which have all these very small ventilation holes before, have issues, but looking at this one, you've got the vents there, you've also got a gap there for ventilation, and it's also got some ventilation along here, so that should help quite a bit. There doesn't seem to be any ventilation around the glass on there, or on this side either. I'm guessing there'll be some ventilation underneath, so let's have a quick look. Yeah, you've got a dust filter there, and you've also got a dust filter there as well. Unfortunately, they're not the slide-on ones, they're the ones what basically you have to pull together and so forth. So if you ever want to clean those out, unfortunately you've got to turn the machine upside down to get the dust filters out, which is a bit of a pain when you've got the machine built up. I would like it to be some sort of tray you could easily pull. Does seem to be some airflow room there as well for the front. So otherwise that's the front and the sides. I'll show you. Oh, there is the manual. It must have been stuck to the bottom. So yeah, you have got a manual in there which will tell you all your basics about the case and everything else. But like most people, I'm not going to bother reading it, so we'll see how it works otherwise. So the back of the case, obviously that's where your motherboard's going to go, and the I/O shield. You've got your installed 120mm fan there, and then you've got your expansion slots there for your PCI Express cards. Power supply is obviously going to go in there. The back end side, so the bit what goes against the back of the motherboard, screws on, that looks like 2 thumb screws which are on extremely tight, that you can't get them off, so you're going to need a screwdriver after all to get in there, and to get the plastic side off, or the window side should I say, again those same type of thumb screws which unfortunately are on that tight, you can't get them off, which makes me wonder why they bother including thumb screws. If you can't get them off with your thumbs, you've got to use a screwdriver. Okay, so let's open this up, see what we've got. We'll start with this side. Again, this has got these thumb screws on, which they've been tightened up that much, you can't actually get them off with your thumbs. So you still have to use a screwdriver anyway, which is a bit of a pain, to be honest with you. I thought the whole idea was a toolless design with thumb screws that you don't need tools. So let's just get those off. It's pretty standard screws, just a Phillips head, but it does make it, and they are tight in all honesty, those thumb screws. I need a screwdriver to get it all the way off. It's very, very tight and not easy to get off. Okay, that's those 2 off. And that side just pulls and comes off, okay? You can see the back of the board there. We'll take the other side off first, and then we'll have a look at the insides a bit more clearer once that's done. So let's have a look. Again, this side is held on by 5 of these thumb screws. Yeah, these are quite tight as well. Okay, so it can fall out quite easily, that. So watch it. I know it's plastic, so it's not going to be like glass, but still potentially you could scratch it, damage it. It has got plastic coating on both sides, so if you want to peel those off, that's up to you. I know some of you like that new case sound when you peel this stuff off. There you go. And then again to the other side. Okay, let's have a look at the insides. First thing I notice is this Molex hanging down. I'm guessing this is for some form of lighting on here. I'm guessing it's going to be the RGB probably lighting, what's controlled by the fans on there, but we'll find that out. We've got, unfortunately we've got one of those HD audio headers which is showing the multicoloured or the coffee coloured ends on them, so I wish these manufacturers had covered those up. They're a mess, especially when you've got those like that and then you look at the other connections and they're perfectly black all the way along. In this day and age that needs to be covered up. Fans hanging at the back, it's only got a 3-pin connection on there. Okay, the rest of the cables are tied in, so let's just undo that. USB again is the same, you've got your multicoloured ends. USB 3 is fine though, and all the other cables are fine, so it's just the HD audio and the USB which have those multicoloured ends, which I don't like, because when you're trying to get a motherboard to look nice and match, then suddenly you've got these multicoloured ends sticking on it where all the other ones are black. It's just daft, especially when you're spending so much money on a case sometimes, and I've seen it on cases which have cost 100 or even or close to £200 which have still got these on. So inside otherwise you can see all the holes here for your cable management. There's quite a few of them, so they've all got rubber coatings around them. I'm guessing these things pop out easily. Yes, they do. Come across these quite often, and it's always a pain when you're doing cables. You tighten them up and one comes undone and then you've got to try and fit it in while the cable's connected. So I wish there was a way to where they could hold those in place, a little clip or something what held them, so you didn't have to mess about. Also inside there you've got your risers already on there. The shroud goes all the way across. If you have got a power supply which is RGB, you're not going to see much of it. There's only very small venting there, which you're going to struggle seeing any form of LEDs through that, very minor. So, and also if you've got a branded power supply and you want to see the model on it, you're just not going to. It's completely covered up, there's no way of viewing it. Otherwise the inside, nothing really stands out to me. It looks alright. Does seem to have lots of cable management there, but nothing too special from what I can see. No, so you can have a look at the other side, see if there's anything on this side what's of interest. First thing to notice, obviously you've got to cut out for your motherboard, which is good when fitting water coolers and stuff like that. Your power supply is going to fit in here. You've got your hard drive bays here, which has got all your screws in. So you've got two of those, or you can put obviously 2.5 inch ones or 3.5 inch ones on there. You've also got a connection here for where you can connect up a 2.5 inch on the back. See, there's no controllers what I can see, so it'll be interesting to see how the RGB lights work on this. Okay then guys, what I've done is connected up a power supply up to my tester as well as to the what's called the RGB lights. The RGB lights connect using a Molex. Would have been nice to see a SATA connection, considering most power supplies are starting to get rid of these Molex connections on here. All I need to do is switch my power supply tester on and it'll kick in the power supply and then that will light up, and fingers crossed. Yep, that seems to be working on there. As you can see, the colours have come on. They seem to fade in and out. The front looks probably a bit better. The top lights, which I'll show you a picture of in a bit, do look a little bit like a runway is probably the best way of putting it. So I've just turned the lights off, see if you can see it a bit better. So you can see each individual light, so it doesn't really light it up, you just see these little dots of lights all along. If we press the LED button, you can see it cycles through to the next colour, which this one being blue or turquoise. But one of the LEDs is green, which is a little bit strange. So I have a feeling that LED, the blue part of it, is not working. We'll figure that out in a minute when we're going to straight blue. Okay, same again, purple, and that's red one. So it looks like we've got a damaged LED in there, which is a little bit disappointing. So you can see it does seem to phase between the colour, so it goes on and off, so sort of a breathing effect. Oh, you do have a flashing effect, which looks okay if you want that disco theme. The catch is that LED what's gone looks really weird, which is a little bit of a shame, but it makes the runway effect look a little bit out because the colour is flashing differently because the blue doesn't work. Sticking it back onto red looks fine, so if you stick it on red only, you're not going to notice the problem, or even green. Oh, so that seems to be actually cycling between all the different colours there. If you hold the LED light down, it seems to turn the LEDs off. And press it on again, it goes back to the breathing mode. Oh, well, that's off anyway. So you go back to the breathing mode. So it really depends on how you want to actually do it. But it does seem that it looks like you've only got a breathing option. It doesn't seem to stay on that same colour, so it doesn't stay always bright red or whatever. So you've only got the one option. You choose a colour and then it breathes, or it will choose multiple different colours, sort of a rotating effect. And if I can find it again, it's probably after the white. Yeah, so you've got flashing between all the different colours, which is a bit strange, but there we go. Now this is RGB and not ARGB, which means that all the LEDs have to be the same colour at the same time. So looking at the marketing on a lot of this, if you look at a lot of the marketing on this, you'll see the pictures, it'll show different colours all the way up and down here. So this bit will be red, blue, green and so forth. That usually happens on ARGB lights. This isn't ARGB, so the marketing is a little bit misleading because it won't look exactly like it does on the picture. These two bits will light up blue when we've got the motherboard connected up, and we'll show you that in a bit, but it'll give you a rough idea of what these bits look like. So it's nice, but unfortunately I'm a bit disappointed about that LED. I suppose it happens, but to be honest, out of all the different cases we've tested, I've not actually had an LED go before, so not on anything really, unless it's been usually around about 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So it's just an unfortunate thing. I would have thought that would have been picked up on the quality check. Okay, so we have the case here set up, and what I'm going to do now is just check the airflow on the front, because I'm pretty sure these really small air vents down here don't actually give it much airflow at all, which is making me wonder, is the radiator what's behind here actually, well, should I say, if you had a radiator behind here, if it would actually affect it or not. So let's just have a look with a quick smoke test to see if it would make any difference or not without that front panel on. Okay, so as you can see, here's our smoke test, and we're going to just have a quick look to see if the front of the case does actually suck in any of that smoke. It is a little bit better than the H17 what we tested a few weeks ago from Thermaltake, but still not brilliant. There's not a huge amount of gaps around those edges, the black frame between the black and the white, for it to suck it in. Let's have a look at these vents at the top. Okay, let's have a look if any of it's getting sucked in through these vents here. Yeah, a bit of it is getting a little bit of suction through there, not a huge amount. I'm guessing nothing's coming through the top. No. Okay, so it does get a bit of air through, but I'm guessing that front panel's restricting it quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is take this front panel off and actually have a look take the front panel off on this isn't the easiest because you can't put your hands straight under, so you have to lift it up slightly and then give it one hell of a pull for it to come undone, which, as you can see, isn't wanting to come. There we go. Don't get me wrong, there are pressure studs inside that make it easier to open, but because you can't get that grip, it does make it a little bit difficult. So let's have a look. So we try the same thing again with just the fan there. Yeah, as you can see there, the front fan, when the front is off, is actually sucking the airflow through pretty easily. So there's no question about it, that front does restrict some of the airflow, which I would be slightly worried if you did have a radiator actually directly behind there. Don't get me wrong, if you've got more fans in there it does allow more pressure and so forth, but I would have thought with a 140mm fan straight there, straight behind the front panel, that would suck at least some airflow in. I'm not a huge fan of these full plastic fronts with a little gaps around because honestly it doesn't allow much in the way of airflow.
So let's get to the conclusion and the pros and cons. The first standout point on this is the design of it. It looks like a stormtrooper's helmet out of Star Wars. They also do a black version as well, so if you like that sort of thing, it might be down your alley. Other positives are it has the window on the side, which is a full side window, so you can see inside the case if it is well enough lit. And it is also lightweight. Now getting to the negatives. You're not able to remove the dust filters very easily on the case, so you really have to turn it upside down or on its side to get to the dust filters that are on the bottom. And then a lot of areas on the case where have got intakes have no dust filters on them at all, so it makes you wonder why the bother. The thumb screws on this case are on way too tight, and the idea of thumb screws is so you can remove them easily with obviously your thumb and fingers. The HD audio and the USB 2.0 cables have the multicolored sachet packet design on the end, so they don't look very neat at all. They really need booting, so it covers up those cables. The rubber fittings that go around the cable management in the case, okay, it's a good idea, but there's only 5 in total, I think it was, and unfortunately they fall out very easily, especially when you're threading cables through. The RGB system connects up with a Molex connection rather than a SATA connection. Again, these days a lot of power supplies are starting to do away with Molex connections. It looks like they've repurposed the case. It looks like something off of an older model and they've just gone and stuck a new design over the top. For example, the case has got 2 3.5-inch bays on the actual chassis where you actually peel the metal plates off so you can put a DVD or CD drive in there, and it has also got a 2.5-inch one as well. Obviously on the front of the case there's nowhere to put these, so they must have used the chassis from another model to do this. And this can cause other issues as well, because if you wanted to fit some fans on the front and you accidentally knock out that metal plate what's covering the DVD area, that is actually where you'd screw part of your fan into, so it's not a very good design. And also the way it's designed, it also restricts the airflow. The cabling at the top where all the RGB lights and everything are just looks like a bird's nest. It looks like a 5-year-old basically goes, oh, well, what do I do with all these cables? And basically got a hot glue gun and stuck them all down. They are not very neat to look at all. And then obviously the cabling going from them to hide them behind the motherboard, you have to actually have them going across the front side of the case by around about probably about 5 or 6 inches, so if you look through the window you can actually see the cables coming from the top corner down into the case and then going through a hole towards the back of the motherboard. Another issue is airflow. Yes, the case looks nice, and if you're not having a high powered machine, yeah, okay, but if you're going to have a radiator behind where the actual front panel goes, it's going to get a restricted airflow. We found that actually removing the front panel on the case reduced the temperature of the processor by 6 degrees, and that's 6 degrees Celsius, so that's quite a bit. So that means that front panel is very restricted in the air, and as you can see from our smoke test, not much actually went through there when the front panel was actually there. The power supply shroud does not get any real use other than covering up the power supply. If you've got a decent power supply, you're not going to be able to see it at all. The very small venting holes at the top's not going to really let much light through for RGB if you have got an RGB power supply. So overall, it's not the best in the world. It does do its job, so if you have got a nasty power supply and you don't want people to see it, then it will cover it up. But if you've got a decent one, then no one's going to be able to know you've actually got one. And the last thing is just a niggly one really. It's where your 8-pin CPU connector will go from your power supply through the back of the casing. If you've got your motherboard in, it's very difficult to get that cable through, so you really need to get that cable through the actual plate on the back of the case before you actually fit the motherboard, otherwise you may have difficulties. So in conclusion, if it was actually a cheaper case, it would have probably scored a little bit better, but for what you actually get, it's quite an expensive case. If you compare it to some of the others on the market, for the same price range, you get a hell of a lot more for your money, and this just seems to be that you're paying for the design rather than the actual functionality. Thermaltake themselves have cases in this price range that are a lot better, so it's quite hard to say, yeah, buy this, because it seems a little overpriced for what you get. When the guys in the design department basically made this, it seems as if someone's basically said to them, right guys, you need to make a new case what looks really cool so we can sell it. And so what they've done is gone into the back of the workshop and gone, right, we've got loads of these old cases left over, let's use this and stick loads of white plastic all over it and black plastic and make it look really cool. Unfortunately, that's what it looks like they've done. But don't get me wrong, it really does look nice. It's just let down by the things like you've got room for a DVD drive inside, so the mounting holes and everything for one, and things like the cabling at the top looks like a complete mess, like someone just went, oh, I don't know what to do with the cables, I'm just going to stick them down. So would I recommend this case or even sell it? In reality, not really. Maybe on a really low-end machine which won't get hot, or someone really likes the design and they're really into Star Wars, but if you're wanting something high-end with an i7 processor or even a high-end graphics card in there, the thing's going to get hot pretty quick. So what do we score it? Well, don't get me wrong, it's not the worst case we've ever seen, but it's far from the best or even middle range, so we're going to give this a bronze award, and hopefully Thermaltake will relaunch this model, maybe keep the design, maybe add some glass aspects to it, and sort out the internal chassis with the cabling, because that was just atrocious. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. Don't forget to press the subscribe button over here, that way you'll get all the latest news and all the reviews we do on a weekly basis. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.